Well, Louie Gohmert is with us, and Louie Gohmert is a U.S. representative from Congress from Texas, and he is one of the plain-spoken guys. He is one of the few in Washington. I remember the first time I met him. I was here in Texas, and Pat said to me, "Have you ever met Louie Gohmert?" And I said, "No, I haven't." He said, Glenn, you have to meet him." And I said, "I don't want to meet another congressman, please." He said, No. You have to meet Louie Gohmert. He is one of the real, true good guys. And Louie, I'm looking at the things that you have just done in the last week, and I have a feeling that you're going to be prison number 77441 as soon as they start rounding people up.
Maybe we could share a cell, or at least be close. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, well, we could, as long as we could just tap messages to each other on the bars.
That works. That works.
Some of the things that you've been talking about this week are very plain spoken, and that's why we wanted to have you on. May we start with the Boston bombing? You know what we know on the Boston bombing and more. Can you go into that at all on what's happening on that?
Well, I can to some of it, but some still hasn't been released. But for heaven's sake, when you have a guy here like Tomerlin, and you have even had a heads up from Russia that this guy is radicalized, and you don't do anything about it, you go out and visit with him and his family. Glenn, can you imagine what that interview must have been like? Since we know the FBI lexicon has been cleaned up to avoid using terms like jihad and so many of the things the 9/11 Commission referred to, how do you do that interview without getting in trouble with your bosses because you're talking about jihad? How do you ask this guy, what is your most important religious writer? Is it Qutb that wrote Milestones that Biari that is defended, who happens to also be on the Homeland Security Advisory Council? But Qutb is also a guy Osama bin Laden said helped radicalize him through his writings. How do you go into that to determine this guy's not a threat if you can't bore down on exactly what he believes about jihad? I just can't imagine. It must have been a complete waste of time to go out and talk to a guy when you can't bore into the issue that's most important. How radicalized are you? What are your beliefs? Who do you follow? Who do you think is important in the Islamic movement? And they didn't get any of that.
Louie, can you tell me this? Sorry, Congressman, can you tell me this? Who is... tell me the story on the judge. The judge really disturbs me. We started looking into this judge yesterday that went and read the Miranda rights, and I'm all for American citizens need to maintain their rights, or this government is going to go way out of control. But the FBI was shocked by this judge. We were 16 hours into a 48-hour process where it's legal to not Mirandize somebody for 48 hours if they are moving forward. The FBI was shocked, but yet the Justice Department wasn't. Holder knew about it. She was dispatched by somebody, apparently. She's a woman who has gone over to the Middle East many times. She has been working with the Islamic judges over in the Middle East. Do we know anything about her? Do we know who exactly gave her the order to go over to the hospital and stop the questioning? What happened there? Who is she?
Well, we got different versions on that she just showed up, and then, the Justice Department had advised her to come, and I haven't gotten a satisfactory answer, but think about it. When your Attorney General has spent more of his legal career helping terrorists than defending the country, then, we all have certain biases and lean certain ways. And but let me correct something. There are so many legal experts out there that say, well, he had to be Mirandized. The consequences of failing to Mirandize him, even if they went days without Mirandizing, the consequences, the Supreme Court says, is the exclusionary rule. Then anything said after he should have been Mirandized will not be admissible at his trial, although it would be admissible at potentially other trials of other individuals. And it would also be usable if you find out information that will save Americans. So the price of not Mirandizing him 48 hours later, which is when you're supposed to actually it begs the question, what happens if you don't? Well, if you don't, by 48 hours, you can't use anything that he has said before that. So
but what I'm asking you here,
no need to rush in 16 hours later. And one other comparison, compare that to people who were at Benghazi or who knew about what all went on in Benghazi, who have been asking for private attorneys from this administration, and this administration has gone days and days and days and refused to pony up and agree to a council so they can talk about what happened.
We now know that much of the Benghazi things that we talked about at the Blaze, we talked about very early. We talked with you when you were here, I believe, right after Benghazi, and I said, "This is Congressman, there's something wrong, and here's what we think it is," and it looks like it's now being confirmed. It was nonstop lies from the administration. Is anything ever going to happen with that?
Well, I sure hope so. The Intelligence Committee did their report, but keep in mind this is the same Intelligence Committee that last summer, after Michelle Bachmann and I and three others signed letters asking for investigations as to the extent of the Muslim Brotherhood influence in 5 different departments and set out undeniable facts in each one of those letters. Our Intelligence Committee chairman and ranking member went public and said, we have absolutely no information that any of this is true. That, and all we were saying is there are indications of Muslim Brotherhood influence. Well, now, Egypt, an Egyptian magazine says there are 6 members of the Muslim Brotherhood who are active and are playing a vital role in this administration, and they set out their names. How is it that our intelligence is not as intelligent as an Egyptian
but I don't believe that. And Congressman, I don't believe that, and I don't think you do either. Maybe you do. I think they know. I think they have chosen to believe that the Muslim Brotherhood is, on the good guys. I think Muslim Brotherhood in these clerics and the mosques, several of them around the country, are run by Saudi Arabia, funded by Saudi Arabia, funded by the North American arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. We have the Muslim Brotherhood in here in Texas, all across the country. We have them with CARE. The guy who's now running the Syrian rebels in Syria for the Muslim Brotherhood, who we have helped prop up. That guy comes from Dallas, Texas. His wife was a school teacher here. They leave Texas in December.
Mohammed El-Biari lives there in Plano, and he's on the Homeland Security Advisory Council. The Egyptian magazine counts him as a solid member of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he has defended Qutb and said he's a great writer, and that's the guy that is given credit for radicalizing Osama bin Laden. And then you've got Mohammed Majid, the imam, who advises the president on all kinds of issues, helps him with speeches, gives him all kinds of advice. And then Mohammed Majid also happened to hand a diversity award to an extreme Jew hater named Dawood Valad. And so these guys are not friends of Israel. They're not friends of ours, and they do give horrible advice at this administration. So you're exactly right. They know who's in there advising them. But I have asked Janet Napolitano under oath how many members of the Muslim Brotherhood were on her Countering Violent Extremism working group. She couldn't answer. On the Homeland Security Advisory Council, she couldn't answer, but the Egyptian magazine knows. And when I asked her what was the Freedom and Justice Party in Egypt, she couldn't answer. She didn't know that it was the Muslim Brotherhood Party, and that is also the name of the foundation of one of her Homeland Security Advisory Council members.
So help me out on this, because
either they lie under oath or they do know the extent of Muslim Brotherhood infiltration into our government.
So help me out, because honestly, with the warrantless wiretaps that are just staggering, immigration reform, gun control, the bombings, the things that happened on the streets of Boston were disturbing. I think you have a lot of people in America that, this government is denying the reality. The average American understands some of what is going on, but they're starting to unplug, they're not paying attention, and they're beginning to feel like nothing will ever change. What do we do, Congressman?
Well, I think a lot of people are waking up, and I think as horrible and tragic and egregious as the bombing was in Boston, it is waking people up, and I think that's a good thing. But they need to start demanding of this administration calls, emails, letters, and also of their senators. I think we get the House on board if we can push our speaker into it, but to pursuing these issues. Now, Dale Issa told me, look, you're going to see the intelligence report, but just understand we're going to be following that up with hearings on Benghazi. And they're trying to get private attorneys for guys so they can come in and be truthful and tell without being prosecuted by this administration. But the most stoutly that this administration goes after anybody is anybody that provides information about what's really going on, whether it's about Fast and Furious, Benghazi. As we've heard this week, there have been threats against those who might disclose what has occurred. I may be the only member of Congress that's talked to a survivor from Benghazi. I hadn't rushed forward because he's become a friend, and I care deeply about him, and he wants to keep working for the State Department. But the people that we really need are those who were at the points of communication that knew exactly what was known by whom, what information went to whom, and we can get to the bottom of it, because those people should not have been hung out to dry for so long. And it sends a message to our people in intelligence and in the military that this administration will leave you hanging out to dry and not send help for 20 hours if it's deemed politically expedient to ignore you.
But I will tell you this, Congressman, that until I have the funding to be able to put a global operation together, to be able to have assets on the ground and do the things that the network should be doing, I don't know how else to get the information. I mean, we shared with you the information that we had on the Saudi Arabian. Now every network is trying to say it's meaningless. That guy didn't exist. It was all of the disinformation, all of that stuff.
It's interesting. There were a number of people who were here on visas, and when they get to investigating, we find out, our visa system is not working so well. It's amazing how many people, including 9/11 bombers, were here overstaying visas, and yet we can't, even though we can't monitor the very limited number that are here that overstayed visas, that have applied for visas. I mean, these people got asylum, Glenn, and came in for fear of their lives. Wouldn't it have been a good clue when they returned to the region from which they fled for asylum that maybe they're not in fear for their lives anymore? Maybe wouldn't it have been a good clue when Tomlin went to the most radicalized area in Russia that, maybe there's some problem here? Maybe shouldn't it have been a clue we have a broken system when his mother has a warrant for her arrest for shoplifting more than $1,000 from a department store, and she decides to leave the country, and Ms. Napolitano's system does not even ping? I mean, we have a broken system, and those that say we'll fix it by adding 11 million all of a sudden to be checked out just do not understand the extent of the brokenness of this system.
I hear, what was it, Politico that did the story this morning that you had a drive with Jeff Flake, who was on this program about immigration reform, and I like Jeff an awful lot, and I think he's one of the good guys, but I think he's wrong on immigration reform. How'd that conversation go?
Well, Jeff and I are very good friends, and he stood up numerous times in the House when he had leaders of our party that were mad at him, and yet he was saying these are wastes of money. So I have just tremendous respect for Jeff, and I was hoping he would be elected. But it doesn't mean we agree on everything, and I disagree with the proposal that he's helping propose in the Senate. But he is a good guy. He's just wrong on this particular issue.
And Joe Biden said that gun control will pass before the year is out.
Well, he's said a lot of things. He said he was going to go through the budget line by line and scrub it of every bit of waste, fraud, and abuse, and we know how that worked out. So he's used to making promises that with his mouth that the rest of him cannot keep.
If the people in America, if you could get them to understand or to do one thing, what would it be?
It would be, well, first of all, listen to you more often, but because you get it, you understand how serious this problem is, but get involved in watching what is coming out of Washington. I had a lot of friends in high school who say, Louie, I don't care what the government does as long as they leave me alone. Well, guess what? When you don't care what the government does, it does not leave you alone. People have got to start noticing, and I think as Christians, it's our obligation, since we are the government's of and by and for us, we're part of the government. We hire on hiring day, called election day. You need to know, examine those people, look at their resumes, interview them. People have got to get more responsible, or we're going to lose the greatest gift that God has ever blessed people with, and that is this great nation.
Congressman Louie Gohmert from Texas, one of the true good guys and a spine made of titanium. And I'm glad to have you there, Louie. I really am. And
thank you so much, Glenn. I'm glad to have you there.
May God bless you and all those who are working by your side in Washington. Thanks a lot, Louie.